Hello and welcome finally to the last episode of HughesRound this week. I'm not going to be able to do it tomorrow, unfortunately, but I am here now, which is good. I just sat down in my basement to start recording. Well, not recording, to start streaming. And I looked at my screen on my laptop and behind me was black. It was just black because last night I moved a load of files off my laptop onto my hard drive here. And basically, I took away my backdrop. So I had to get it back. So I had to do a little search around the house and then a search on the actual hard drive. And now I'm here. Sorry, I'm very sorry for being late. For those of you who like to tune in to this as soon as James O'Brien finishes. We had a little break there. You could listen to the news. I don't know. So Sugar Free says only me. I'm here, Sugar Free. I'm here. Hi from Germany, says Pete. And Fiona says deal or no deal. I think there'll be a deal. I keep saying this. And I know I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I still think there will be a wafer-thin deal. It will be a rubbish deal for the United Kingdom. And it won't even be that good a deal for Europe, really. But this is what happens when you take 27 of your closest trading partners and turn them into 27, a group of 27. So let's just say one big, massive trading rival. And so obviously they don't want us to have a competitive advantage by, I don't know, being able to give loads of money from the government to failing businesses to prop them up so they can basically subsidise what we produce so we can produce things cheaper than other countries. That wouldn't be fair. So we don't want to be able to do that. Well, the EU doesn't want us to be able to do that. But the irony is that's something that the Conservative lot, that's something that's never really been in their desires, ideology, has it? Because they've always been free marketeers. It's always been about the free market. So yeah, I do think that there will be a deal. I don't know if it's going to be announced at 3:00 today by Michel Barnier. I'll probably just say, the talks are ongoing. They probably will go on to literally the 11th hour on the 31st. But as I've said numerous times, Hughes at 10 and on HughesRound, and even back in the day on Pubcast, I think that there will be a bodge. So I don't think that it's a case of saying, well, the rules say X, Y, Z. Well, look, at the end of the day, the rules can be changed, and they will be changed if necessary. And if we need more time to ratify an agreement, the rules will be bent somewhat. The EU isn't completely rigid in the way it does things, and neither is the British Parliament, to be honest with you. Neither is anything in life. Everything can be fudged a little bit, but it's how the lying, creepy, upper class, inbred, eyes too close together, creep Boris Johnson sells this, or tries to sell it to the British public, which would be the interesting part of all this, because how does he sell it? How does he sell this absolute nightmare that we have got ourselves into? Because the panic buying in the shops, all the letters disappearing. This is like day one. And the only reason why we're in such dire straits as a result of the ports closing down, people are saying, it's not Boris Johnson's fault. You can't blame Boris Johnson for the virus. I can blame Boris Johnson for not responding to the virus the way he should have done and suppressed the virus. They focused on trying to make sure that the NHS wasn't overwhelmed. No, they should have suppressed the virus, like what they did in Singapore, which has only had a handful of deaths. In Malaysia, there's been about 450 deaths in Malaysia. In Thailand, it's 60. In Vietnam, it's 35. In Cambodia and Laos, it's 0. 0 people have died of COVID. And people might say, they could just be cooking the books. As if to think that there's nobody in Southeast Asia who's a doctor or a nurse or a healthcare practitioner who works in a hospital who hasn't got a phone with a camera on it to show that someone's dying of COVID. Because I do think there are millions of people in that situation all over the world. And I don't see why they would lie to prop up a government in all these different countries. So look at Taiwan. Deaths in Taiwan. The population, what's the population of Taiwan? 30 million? 7 deaths 7. The deaths in the UK, official, within 28 days of getting a positive test for COVID. 67,000 deaths. Now, if that wasn't the case, the number of transmissions wouldn't be so high. If we had controlled the virus properly, like people were screaming to do back in March, if we controlled it correctly, as other countries have done, we wouldn't have a mutant strain, because you get a mutated strain because you have millions of transmissions, and eventually one of those transmissions mutates. It's nature, natural selection, gets better at what it does. And as a result of this mutant strain, which is arguably not as deadly, but it's more transmittable, and it seems like children can transmit it as well, which puts getting kids going back to school into disarray. We didn't control it. We chose to. We didn't control it. We didn't suppress it. It was just an excuse for Boris Johnson to grandstand about the place, pretending his Winston Churchill fantasies were coming true, and finally he was going to be able to rise up. Come F the man, come F the hour, or whatever they say. And here we are, cut off from the continent because of Johnson. And why is Johnson in charge? Because of Brexit. It all comes round to Brexit. This is COVID and Brexit coming together in a cacophony of ineptitude. And as a result, there's been a run on the supermarkets. The queues are going out the door today. And I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Anyway, I'm going to jump into some of the comments here that people are kindly leaving for me. Hello, Graham Hughes and Huguenots. That's from Darian. Did you see the clown laughing at Peston's question yesterday? Yes, I did. Boris Johnson actually laughing in a press conference. And it was a question about Brexit, actually. He just thinks it's all a big joke, because he does think that it's all a big joke. This is the one thing you've got to understand about these rich upper class, is that they believe everything to be a gigantic wheeze. Why? Because that's the way they were brought up. That's the way they're told to feel about things. It's all a big laugh. Life's a big old laugh. Because they've got nothing to worry about. They've got safety nets. They've got things that they can run away. They can go to another country. No problem. They'll get in. They've got loads of money. Money may not bring you happiness, but certainly opens a lot of doors. Certainly makes life a little bit easier, especially when tragedy hits, especially when a pandemic hits, especially when we're stuck on an island otherwise, because we can't afford a private jet to fly us out somewhere else. So here we are. And it's Christmas. I should be all jolly. Should be tanked up. Should be, having a good time with my friends and family, but I'm not. There's a lot of countries where they're having a fairly normal Christmas this year. New Zealand, Australia, where they handled this much better. I mean, in Australia, as I said yesterday, don't like Scott Morrison. I'm not going to give him any credit because it seems that they did a good job despite him. But yeah, they did a much, 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 much better job than the United Kingdom. And they took the damn thing seriously. And you've got all these anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers and anti-lockdowners, idiots, right? But can you blame them when the people in charge are idiots? When the people in charge won't make it clear how deadly this virus is and how important it is that we lock down? What do you expect? You're led by clowns. People will act like clowns because they'll think that's the natural order of things. Yeah, that's all act like idiots and irresponsible dickheads. That's the way. That's the way we need to handle this pandemic. And now what you see is this absolute tragedy unfolding. And we've got thousands of truck drivers stranded through Kent. The M20 was closed last night. And on top of all this, we're heading towards a wafer-thin Brexit deal that's been rushed through. No one's going to be able to read it properly. If I was the EU, I would absolutely put loads of mad little clauses in there just for a laugh. Because you know that the British parliamentarians won't read it. Many of them can't read, I don't think. They're that thick. They're like really... If they went to a normal school like you and I, they would be put under special measures. Not the school, just them. But they went to a posh school, didn't they? So they can do what they like. Hi from the home counties. That's from Too Much 77. I like being a Huguenot. Yay. A Huguenot. A Huguenot. No, not a Huguenot, because they were the oppressed Protestants of France under the reign of Louis XIV, many of whom ran away to the UK where they could be safe, including possibly someone with the surname Farage. Oh, and by the way, because Marc Francois has popped back up again, always remember to spell it with a cedilla, the little curly thing under the C of his name, because it's a French name, and I know that annoys him. Hi, Graham, says Marza. Hello. It's going to be no deal or thin deal. Is there really much difference? Won't there be chaos at the ports for an extended period? Malik, yes. Whether there is a deal or no deal, there will be absolute carnage at the ports because they have to stop everything and check it. The difference between us getting a deal and not getting a deal is on tariffs. So it's not about logistics. It's not about getting stuff in and out of the country. That's screwed either way. But if without a deal, British businesses are just going to fold. Left, right and centre, up, down, north, south, west and east, they are going to fold because we get most of our stuff from abroad and then we send a lot of stuff to abroad. There's very little stuff that we actually mine out the earth here in Britain. That's 100% British. Not even farming. A lot of the seeds come from abroad. The herbicides, the pesticides, the nitrates that we put in the soil to make things grow comes from abroad. The plastics that we use in the process of farming come from abroad. The oil that we put into our tractors, the diesel, comes from abroad. Are you spotting a pattern here? Yeah. So anything that comes from abroad is going to be disrupted because of the ports, but then also because half of our trade is with the EU, suddenly there's tariffs on everything. Books are all right. I've written a book. You can get my book, 0% tariff. WTO, thank you. But if you're a sheep farmer, oh dear. 40 to 50% tariff on your sheep. That's the difference between a no deal and a deal. But farmers are screwed anyway, because even if they do get a deal, their subsidies are getting back-heeled by the government. So a lot of crops that are not profitable to grow, and they are grown for such cheap prices because they're subsidised by the Common Agricultural Policy, because the EU wants everyone to have enough money for food, a policy that the government of this country really hates. The idea that the plebs should have food, it's a disgrace. So yeah, we're not going down that route. But yeah, those subsidies are going. And if you're a wheat farmer, good luck making money out of that. The average wheat farmer makes what, $2,000 a year? Before he's paid wages for people. And then I think it's about minus 16 grand. So I meant they, not he. It could be a woman. Boris Johnson, elect a clown, expect a circus. That's a Neil. Absolutely. I'm just going to skip down a few because I don't want to be too far behind. 2 weeks ago at our daily briefings, Professor Leach told us that Scotland had come close to eradicating the virus, but we couldn't close our borders. I could cry. That's from Marsa. Yeah, but in 2022, you will be able to close your borders because Scotland will be a separate country, and I am goddamn supporting that movement because I feel absolutely... I just cringe. I cringe inside. With the knowledge that England has pulled Scotland unwillingly out of the European Union against its will. I am mortified by the fact that England has done that. And even though I'm English, I'm so embarrassed. It's like having someone in your family who's just gone down for a crime. You know, you're mortified. It might not have been me personally who voted for it. It might not be me personally who committed the crime. But I also feel like maybe if I had been more outspoken when people talked about the EU and parroted bull stuff. I'm not supposed to swear on these during the day. Parroted nonsense spoken. They read in the Daily Mail, and the Daily Express, and the Daily Telegraph, and the Scum, all these newspapers. 63% of Britain's media is owned by 3 billionaires, all of whom are massive Nazis. Why do you think we're here? Why do you think we have hit the point? And we're not even at rock bottom yet, people. I'm sorry to tell you this. We've got further down to go. But you know what? We can do it together. All of us watching this, me, you, people who voted to remain, people who want to rejoin, we can do this together. We can go into this together and we can be smug as hell about the fact that we told you so, which it doesn't feel as good as like when I'm watching a film and I say at the beginning, oh, see that thing? That's going to be used at the end to kill the baddie. And then 90 minutes later, that thing that I saw at the beginning, I went, oh, see, they used that to kill the baddie. That's why they drew attention to it at the beginning. Chekhov's gun. There's a certain feeling of smugness in that, but I don't feel that kind of warm glow of smugness about saying I told you so. I feel absolute despair. I don't want to be right. I don't want to be right on this. I don't want to be like, yeah, well, good job I stockpiled, eh? But yeah, I am. It's good job I bloody stockpiled and I'm not having to not do this broadcast today because I'm busy queuing outside a supermarket to get some lettuce. Not that I'm going to eat lettuce for the next few weeks. God damn it. If a deal, will there be a transitional period? Yeah, Fiona. I think there'll be like I said, I've said this a few times now. There'll be something that Boris Johnson will spin with his spin doctor PR Mad Men friends into being an implementation period or some other term. It won't be a transition. It'll be something else, but it'll be effectively a transition. Everything will stay the same until X date, or they might change some things but not others, allowing time for parliamentary scrutiny and for the EU countries to sign off on it because they're not gonna go for a trade deal. That's crap for them. And I hope that the farmers in Walloon actually say, hang on, we're going to have a real good look at this deal and make sure that it's in our interest, because then Britain's going to learn that this obsession with fish and protecting its own borders, and they don't seem to realise that a border is with another country and they can do what the hell they like. They can do what the hell they like on the other side. We can't do anything about that, but we've got to protect our borders. Yeah, okay, well, they can do that as well, you know. And it's the same border because it's a border with them. But yeah, fish. They're a bit too busy denying that electricity and gravity exist to come on the internet. Have we not got a troll yet? Farage claiming border control equals sovereignties. EU members control their own borders. This is not sovereignty, of course, but bullying. Yeah, I mean, Farage is just scum. He is just utter 100% deep-cut scum of the earth. And he will go down in history as one of the worst human beings ever to have existed. He has lied and cheated his way into bankrupting a country that he says that he loves. So obviously he doesn't love the country, because if he did, he wouldn't, I don't know, get it bankrupted, which is what we're doing. Our national debt is now over £2.1 trillion. So our national debt is now more than our GDP. Wow, have a look at that. And we haven't even left yet. But you know what? You could blame it all on COVID if you like, but those trucks were queuing at the border before the French closed the border. Yeah, unsettling fact that, isn't it? The fact that there were queues because of Brexit, and we've made it much, much, much worse. We might as well go full Singapore without Scotland and Northern Ireland, even smaller representation if we did rejoin. But if we went full Singapore is basically a benevolent dictatorship, and the benevolence of it rises and falls according to whoever's in charge at the time, or advising the guy in charge. I don't want to live in that. I would leave the country if it got to that. I'll go and live in Scotland, which I'm kind of thinking of doing anyway. Daffyd says afternoon. 55% of our fishing quota is owned by 3 super rich families who disenfranchise our coastal fisher people. The bloody Tories setting up a quota market, the only EU sovereign country to do so. There you go. That's a note from Derek there. That's what we did. We sold off our quotas to other countries because we were allowed to, whereas other countries weren't allowed to do that for obvious good reasons. Frictionless borders, lol. Yeah, that's from Brexit Central. The Freckle Puny says, history will not treat Brexit or those who engineered and supported it well. No, I really don't think that it will treat them well. I don't think in a couple of years' time, I don't think the here and now will treat them very well either. I think there will have to be some kind of truth and reconciliation committee on a scale that we saw after the end of apartheid in South Africa. I mean, it's that bad. I don't want to diminish the suffering of people in South Africa until that happened, but I'm talking about the actual damage that's been done to a country by a group of very horrible people. I think there's going to have to be something set up where they confess to their crimes to some extent. I can't see them going to jail, unfortunately, because we live in a country where the Prime Minister, the future King, the head of the Metropolitan Police, the Archbishop of Canterbury, everyone in charge of test and trace, the vaccines, the entire Tory party pretty much, over 60% of the high judiciary of the country, and 38% of the intake for Durham, Oxford, Cambridge, and something like 90% of the top jobs in the City of London are all given to people who went to private schools. So I don't think they're going to actually spend any time in jail, because that's just not the way this country works. Maybe we need a revolution. Maybe. 1,500 lorries stuck in Kent now. Oh, and then there's this. Belgium extends the travel ban. So it's going to be more than 48 hours. I don't know, unless they're extending it to people with red hair as well. I will pay my mortgage without extra sovereignty. Yeah, sovereignty is a bit like exposure. If you're a content provider, which I guess I've become over the years, people say, will you make a video for us? And you go, okay, cool. Well, my band's playing. Can you come and film us? And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. How much are you paying us? You get great exposure by doing this. And I'm like, can't pay for petrol with exposure. I can't pay the heating bills with exposure. Can't buy food in the grocery shop with exposure. I just can't. Sorry. Graham, A Different Bias and Maximilian Robespierre live stream tonight 9:30. I'll be sure to look out for that. Welcome to join us in Scotland. That's from Walter. Thank you, Walter. Do you mean your couch? You're offering your couch there? Because I'm one of these terrible people that you meet on holiday once, like 17 years ago. And you say to me, if you're ever in Vancouver, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then one day you'll get a text message. Hi, it's Graham. I'm in Vancouver. Yes, I am that person. I have no shame. If you're a working age, Ireland and Scotland are good places to flee to. On the continent, I think Spain is good, but difficult to get citizenship. That's from RC. Sugarfree says, I wonder if anyone is setting up deprogramming for Brexit cooks. Well, I don't know. I mean, how do you deprogram someone who's 80 years old and has lived their entire life believing everyone who wasn't from their little tiny part of the world is evil? I mean, it's like setting up someone who's a fundamentalist Christian to believe that the devil isn't evil. But I've been told the devil's evil all my life. Yeah, but he's not. Oh, but I've got all this evidence that he's evil, that people say he's evil and he's done all these evil things. No evidence for it, obviously. But, evil. And you're like, well, they're evil. They're not evil. Sorry, they're not evil. And here's why. And it's hard. I don't see us being able to deprogram many people. As morbid as this sounds, I think we just got to wait for nature to take its course, so to speak. That's why I think it's going to take at least 10 years for England to rejoin the EU. By then, I guarantee I'll stake my reputation on it. That doesn't cost me anything. But yeah, I stake my reputation on the fact that in 10 years' time, Scotland and Northern Ireland will be part of the EU again, and maybe Wales as well. I can see Wales going in its own direction, given the catastrophe that is heading our way. Actually, we've already started, haven't we? What do you say to those who claim the EU is an empire? If so, it's the only one where its colonies wish to join. The Feckle Puny, that's people who say the EU is an empire really, really misunderstand trade. I just don't understand how they can think for a moment that it's an empire. What makes them think that is because we have an EU president, we have an EU parliament, and so they go, it's a political thing. But it's not. It's a trade thing, but they wanted to give the people of Europe as much democratic representation as it was possible to have over what happens with our trade deals and trading within the EU and deciding the way the EU moved forward. So this was a club that no one was obliged to join. We tried twice to join it and were knocked back twice by Charles de Gaulle. And then we tried a third time in 1973. We joined with Denmark and Ireland. And 2 years later, we had the referendum on whether that was a good idea or not. And that referendum was won by the Remainers, 66%. 2/3 majority, a super majority, said, yeah, good idea, carry on. And it was. And under being part of the EU, we ended up being the 5th richest economy in the world, or rather remained the 5th richest economy in the world, which wouldn't have happened if we'd tried to go it alone, because no man is an island, not even the Isle of Man. But to call the EU an empire because they allow democratic representation of basically what's a trading bloc is it just shows a complete misunderstanding of what the EU is and what it stands for and what the point of it is. You look at any other big union, the African Union, which is massive, comprises of 54 countries of Africa. No democratic representation of that. You just have representations put from each country and that they're selected. They're either the leader of the country or they are more likely to be some delegate that's sent out there. Not necessarily someone who has been appointed to that position by the people. Whereas we had 73 MEPs. So it's a nonsense. CARICOM doesn't have that. NAFTA doesn't have that. ASEAN doesn't have that. The new Trans-Pacific Rim thing with the robots, with the trade deal between Australia and China and Japan, that's got no democratic representation at the table. And the WTO does not have any democratic representation at the table. We appoint someone to go there and talk with people and resolve disputes that we have with our trading neighbours or trading partners around the world. AB says, I honestly don't think there will be a reckoning. Too many people belligerently holding to their beliefs that Brexit is right. It's all the fault of EU and Remainers. Yeah, AB, you're absolutely spot on, mate, and I agree with you. We'll get the blame for this. We're already getting the blame for this. If Remainers had just, accepted democracy from the start, a democracy in which people were lied to, misled, put up the garden path, and there was Russian interference, but we're not allowed to talk about that. We're not even allowed to investigate it. Thanks, Cressida Dick. The old boys network of this country. It's fantastic, isn't it? MI6, MI5, did they look up what was happening? No. We're not going to bother about worrying about other countries interfering in our democracy. That's not our remit. GCHQ couldn't give a toss. Great, thanks, guys. Probably all posh. What do you reckon? I just imagine. You can't see someone like Eggsy from Kingsman actually getting anywhere in MI5 or MI6. I just can't. Maybe that's just the narrative that I've been brought up with. Maybe there's lots of working class people working for these agencies, but I just can't see it. Big debate down the pub last night over substantial meal. Should Labour vote against the inevitable deal or abstain? I think they should abstain. I think they should abstain unless the deal won't go through without their votes. In which case they will have to vote for it, because a wafer-thin deal is still worse than no deal. But the time scale of this is so irresponsible. Like, you wouldn't sort out the mortgage for a house in this time frame that is going to be left, even if you get a deal today. If you get a deal at 3 o'clock today, the amount of time that's left to scrutinise it just is not enough. Andrea says, question, if the deal was oven ready and the easiest deal in history, the fact that we are 1 week from Brexit and it hasn't been signed yet, doesn't that make Bojo the most incompetent PM in history? Yes. I mean, that's just one of the reasons, Andrea, that he is the most incompetent PM in history. But there are many, many others. Oh my God, there's lots of messages. I'm going to have to skip through a bit. There's a political dimension to the EU that was mainly blocked in its evolution by the UK. Yeah, and the thing is, the political dimension of the EU is by and large, pretty fair. I think it's fairer than the system we have at Westminster. It's not first past the point. They use a d'Hondt system of voting. They have fair representation for each country based on the population of the country. It's not based on land like it seems in America or in some parts of Britain. I think it's just a much fairer system. And one of the criticisms that I do have about the EU, and I said this the other day, is that they just didn't publicise themselves enough. They didn't send leaflets to everyone's house saying, look at this awesome stuff that we've done. And if you will join me in the Rejoin movement in the new year, go to rejoineu.uk, the website I've set up. One of the things that I want to do, and obviously this will go into discussions because I don't want to be spending people's money or people's donations on stuff that they don't want us to spend their money on. So what I'm thinking is we have specific campaigns. So it might be for a march, it might be for a particular campaign, and you get to choose which campaign you give money to. Okay, so you're not giving money, because I hated the idea that I was giving money to a Remain organisation and they were spending it on polling, because I'm like, that's nice, but you're just trying to convince Jeremy Corbyn. Oh, I've mentioned him. 36 minutes in. It was just trying to convince one person. I think that was a good expenditure of the money. Personally, other people might disagree. I know the guy who owns Superdry gave £1 million to one of the Remain not-for-profits to do that. But then you've got the People's Vote, who, I don't know what they did. They organised a couple of marches, which didn't cost £1 million. What they did with the rest of the money, nobody knows. So I want to make sure that the Rejoin campaign and any kind of thing that I'm involved with next year is definitely absolutely beyond reproach. Publishing the accounts as often as possible to say, this is how much money we've got, this is what we're spending it on, so everyone's happy about it. But yeah, one of the things that I'm interested in doing next year is mail outs. And I know this seems like really arcane and weird, and like, why would you want to do mail outs? We can set up Facebook groups and we can go on marches. Yeah, that's great for us. That's great for disseminating the information amongst Remainers or Rejoiners and strengthening our arguments. Well, first of all, making us know that we're not alone. Don't forget, over 50% of the population of this country, if you want to rejoin the EU, over 50% of the population of the UK agrees with you. Okay, that's the first thing to say. You're not in a minority. You are not alone. You are actually in the majority. And you're right as well, which is nice. But yeah, trying to get out of that bubble and talk to people. If we're at a march with an EU flag, it's very difficult to have a civilised conversation with someone. We can't take everyone down the pub and bend their ear for half an hour about how the EU isn't as evil as it was made out to be. I think a better idea, and you might disagree, and if you disagree, fine, don't give money to this part of the campaign. I feel like leaflets should go out in the same way that leaflets go out to people from local councils saying, oh, look at this amazing bridge that we built, or we got the bins out on the right day on Thursday. You can't move in London without seeing posters saying how great something that the Mayor of London has done is. So it'll be a poster about congestion charge, it'll be a poster about the London Underground, and it'll have Mayor of London stamped on the bottom, so you know exactly who decided that thing. So, same thing, you say, okay, let's take Liverpool, for example. Let's get a mail out to everyone in Liverpool, which is not as expensive as it might sound. It's really not as expensive as it might sound. But a mail out that says, here's what the EU did for Liverpool. Here's what Westminster, here's what Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers are planning to do for Liverpool. And it's obviously going to be very, very different. So those leaflets going out to everyone's houses, just an A5 sheet, not too expensive to do, could be more effective, I think, than trying to convince people on Twitter or Facebook or these videos or anything like that, because I don't think they're going to look at it. I don't think they're going to watch this kind of stuff. But a pamphlet through the door when you're already thinking, oh, you know what, I'm not sure I was right about this whole Brexit malarkey. The soft levers. And then they pick up a leaflet that says, look, you've been screwed over. But in very clever language, obviously not as abrasive as I am. We'll get someone in to do this, not me. I'll just have like this leaflet that says, "You effing idiot! What were you thinking?" Which probably won't get down so well. But yeah, so that's one of the ideas. But yeah, deprogramming people. It's gonna be a marathon rather than a sprint. Let's put it that way. 130 people watching and only 30 ups. That's from Dafford. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you give it a like, if you give it a thumbs up, if you're logged in, you can give it a like, and that helps the algorithms apparently, which is nice. Bonjour. You can thank David Cameron and his team for the EU not getting involved in the referendum campaign. They were told to stay away. That's from Carl. Yeah, I know. But when I was talking about the EU publicising itself, I think it should have done it in the run-up to the... I think it just should have done it from the start. And I know it would have got shit from the newspapers, the usual suspects, for saying, oh, the EU sent out a pamphlet saying that it built this amazing new football stadium for Bradford or wherever it was. They'll criticise it, but they're talking about it. The EU, something that the EU did, is being spoken about. And that's the point. Doesn't matter if people are saying, oh, it's a bad thing. They're speaking about this. They're still speaking about it. You've entered it into the public subconscious that the EU paid for that stadium, or that events hall, or the new bus gyratory, or the new extension to Liverpool Airport, or whatever it is. Oh yeah, the EU helped pay for that. I got a pamphlet. Oh, it annoys me that they're telling me, but I know now. And people didn't know. People didn't know what the hell the EU did. Didn't know how it worked. Didn't know what it did. Just between you and me, right? I didn't have that much of a clue either. Saw a few things, EU flags around the place, Didn't know how the EU worked before the referendum. Never really looked into it. I know we had MEPs, had elections now and again. Yeah. It's been a steep learning curve since the 24th of June 2016. And I've come on a journey. At the start of this, I thought we should stay in the EU because leaving seems ridiculous to me, because just from our geopolitical position in the world, something I keep banging on about. Been to all these places around the world, and most of them are poor. That's it. And I wish that wasn't the case, but it is. So while it is, and while we only make like goods and services for affluent people, our market is next door, which is Europe, where there's lots of affluent people. That's it. End of. The number of rich countries around the world that have got a good mixed economy, an advanced economy, you can count them on two hands. Literally, you can count them on two hands. The ones that aren't in Europe. Wow. So that's why I came into it. So it wasn't really a love for the EU. It was more of a being a central realist, an extreme centralist realist, and going, this is the way the world is. You go to the loo with the equipment you've got. So, but now I think the EU is a fantastic idea. I've come round. I think it's bloody wonderful. I think oh my God, why isn't every part of the world doing this? Working together, all the countries, to make everyone richer, make everyone more affluent, make everyone more equitable, give everyone more rights, more workers' rights, more right to travel, to live in other places, to get married, to retire, to have this playground of an entire continent. That's fantastic. Let's have more places like that in the world. But these little Englanders, they rule the day, unfortunately. They were bored watching endless repeats of Dad's Army on UK Gold, and they wanted something else to do with their lives. So they thought, I know, let's cut ourselves off from the richest and most successful trading union in history and see how we do. I fancy a change. Not great. And I've also forgotten to, because I was faffing around trying to get my background back off my hard drive, I've forgotten to bring some more water, so I'm probably going to get a bit croaky. But I've only got 15 minutes left with you before I toss it off and start drinking, I think, for Christmas. I'm not going to do this tomorrow, by the way. I'm not going to do this tomorrow. I should say this at the end, but I'm not going to do this tomorrow. And I will be back on Sunday for the Hughes at 10. However, I might just do an impromptu live show at any time. So just keep an eye out on social media. I might just appear if I just have an hour to myself and just need to just scream about something that Boris Johnson and his team of vicious clowns have pulled out next. Oh, speaking of that, did anyone hear Priti Patel this morning saying that the British government, what was the phrase she used? It was something like, the British government has been ahead of the curve on COVID since March. What world does that woman live in? I mean, come on! And how stupid do you have to be to believe it? I'm like, actually, seriously lacking in cognitive abilities do you have to be to look at the death statistics, look at how many people have caused it, look at the fact we've got a mutated virus, look at the fact that our ports are closed, and go, yeah, they've been ahead of this since the start. The fact they've done everything 2 weeks late. 2 weeks after someone said something, they're going, oh yeah, we should do that. No, Boris Johnson, we're not going to lock down. We're not going to lock down. This was in March. I've been shaking people's hands. Not only did he lock down, he got bloody COVID. And then at the end of September, Sage is saying we need another lockdown. We're going to hit the second wave. No, we don't need it. All through October. No, we don't need it. Beginning of November. Oh shit, we better quickly do a second lockdown. Quick, lockdown. Oh yeah, that's been ahead of the curve. And now, with this mutant virus, he's like, oh yeah, for Christmas, 5 days. Just go back to normal. Just have a normal Christmas. And then literally 2 days before that 5-day period was supposed to start. Oh no, don't do that. Wow. We'll just pest you on Twitter. The EU has been framed as still being corrupt and inefficient, and they undoubtedly were in the early development, but they reformed with Maastricht. Well, the Maastricht Treaty made the EU, Ernie. I mean, it was the EEC or the EC before then, the European Community. That became the EU, and 1992 is when we got representation in the Parliament, directly elected by the people. And the corruption of people in Europe, these MEPs who are riding the gravy train, apparently. I mean, I'm just thinking of the people who we elected, like Anne Widdecombe and Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage was the representative for British Fisheries. I believe he attended one meeting. One. I don't know if he even attended that. But yeah, great, well done. Riding the gravy train there. He's got his pension sorted out. Why don't we hear any more about the 39 billion we were going to have to pay to the EU, which Boris Johnson famously said they could go whistle for? Yeah, they're whistling. They whistled and we went, okay, here's the money. And we paid it. Or we're paying it off because we had a contractual obligation to pay that damn money. It's part of the withdrawal agreement that Boris Johnson signed off on. The only thing that Boris Johnson changed from the Theresa May agreement was that the backstop was basically just given a different name. That was it. The backstop meant that Northern Ireland would stay in the single market and the customs union. That was the backstop. A backstop that was put forward by Britain and then rejected by Britain. It was like, oh, we want this. Okay. No, we don't want that. The idea was that they wanted to avoid a border in the North Sea and placate the DUP. And the DUP went along with this because they're idiots. And now we're going to have a border, North Sea, the Irish Sea. And now we're going to have a border in the Irish Sea. And the DUP are like, oh dear, that's not what I wanted. But, they are a bit thick, aren't they? I mean, really, really thick. I hope I'm not being a bit racist there because they're Irish. But they're not really Irish. They think they're British. Bless them. The most stupid woman I ever met was in a bar in, I think it was Valparaiso in Chile. And she was from Northern Ireland. And she was banging on about the fact that she was British. And I said, well, you're not really British. You might be a UK citizen, I guess. But the UK's full title is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Britain is the island of Britain, and you live on a different island. So technically speaking, you're not really British. Maybe you could say you're British Irish. I don't know. Anyway, so we had a bit of argy-bargy about this. And then she came out with this cracking line, which always stays with me. This was like 18 years ago, but I just remember it for just being so amazing that someone would actually say this kind of thing out loud. She said, oh, but Northern Ireland is a wonderful place. There's no racism there because there's no black people. At which point I spat out my beer. What? I just like couldn't believe that someone in this day and age would say something as incredibly ignorant, offensive, stupid, impractical. It was just like, wow. And then she topped it all off. She topped it all off with what I just goes down in my personal history as one of the dumbest things that someone said to someone who has a degree in history, which is, she said, she understands why the Catholics don't like the British. And I said, why is that? She goes, because of the potato famine. Do you know what Queen Victoria said? She said, let them eat cake. At which point I just dropped my pint and walked out the pub because I was like, what? Anyway, but no, I'm not saying that they're stupid because they're Irish. I'm just saying they're Irish and they're stupid. But yeah, the DUP, duped. It's quite good because it's the first few letters of duped, isn't it? The DUP. I've got Thor saying, hi Graham, greetings from Iceland. Hello, Iceland. I love your music. What else have we got here? What are the British government giving COVID contracts to his mates without putting them out to tender? That is deep corruption. Yeah, so I sometimes lose my train of thoughts. Yeah, the EU corruption is nothing. It's the equivalent of, remember the parliamentary expenses scandal, where you had MPs claiming for an island for their duck pond and all this madness. Do you remember that? Yeah, I do. That pales into insignificance. That was a case of tens of thousands of pounds. This is a case of tens of billions of pounds given to friends of the Conservative Party, given to the wives of Conservative MPs for track and trace systems that didn't work, for PPE that didn't work. They gave companies that had no background in making PPE or distributing PPE, companies that had only been set up in March of this year, gave them contracts for millions, hundreds of millions, British taxpayers' money. Why would they do this? You've got to think of this from all sort of their point of view. They did it because they know what we know, that Britain is going down the pan. And so they're essentially asset stripping the nation on the way out. All of them have their getaways planned some far-flung corner of the world where they plan to hide out for the rest of their lives, hoping that I won't find them, but I will. And it's all planned out. That's why they're doing what they're doing. They've got no plan for 2024. They don't care. They'll be like, oh, Boris Johnson's going to resign next month. I bet he doesn't. Because he hasn't finished stealing all the money yet. There's still a lot of money in this country. I go on and on about the assets in London going, at 1.2 trillion pounds of assets disappearing from London, going off, well, not disappearing, being shifted. We know where it's gone. It's gone to Dublin, it's gone to Paris, it's gone to Frankfurt. But that's still only, it's still a sizable proportion, but it's only a proportion of the wealth of London. There's still a lot more to steal. Andrea Roll says, question, what happens if Brexit kicks in and bananas are still bendy? Who will take the blame? Well, Andrea, I think that the problem was that they were straight and they should be bendy. I'm not sure. Interestingly, though, bananas are British. Did you know bananas are a British invention? No, the banana that we eat, the Cavendish banana, it's a British invention. It was made by the gardener of Alton Towers. I'm not even making this up. It's named after Lord Cavendish, who owned, what did he own? Some estate in Derby or somewhere. Staffordshire, I think. And they grew the first Cavendish banana in like the 1850s or something. And then when the Gross Michael banana had this big blight in the 60s and was wiped out around the world, because all bananas are clones of each other, so there's no genetic variation to allow for viruses. A virus will just, fungal infection, whatever it is that kills them, it'll kill them all because they're all genetically very similar. Genetically the same. So they brought in the Cavendish banana, which apparently tastes different. I think it's like an old Coke, new Coke thing, and older people will tell you that the bananas that they had before the 60s tasted different to the bananas that we have today. True story, not very interesting. Right, back to Brexit and COVID. Yay! The UK leaving the EU is the equivalent of Washington State, Seattle, etc., fencing itself off from the rest of the world and imprisoning its people inside a small state. Effing madness. For crying out loud, I said. Did you see Andy Wigmore getting on the COVID testing gravy train? No, but that wouldn't surprise me. Andy Wigmore, privately educated Brexiteer, scum of the earth, and he walks funny. And if you ever tweet him, always sign it off with the words, "Why do you walk funny?" He doesn't actually walk funny, but I just want to give him a complex. Because if you think about how you're walking, you do walk funny. Is it too late now to plead, ask for an extension to the transition period? I don't think there's going to be an extension to the transition period. I think it will be called something else. They'll bodge it. There'll be like this interim period. The interim period when we still have to wait for the ratification. The ratification period, they'll call it, where I don't think much will change until that goes into effect. The alternative is, of course, the idea that the EU simply say, okay, well, we're prepared for no deal. And they are. You're not. So I'll tell you what, you have no deal for a couple of months. See how you like it. And as your trade is being destroyed, is being decimated by this insane decision to force other countries to slap tariffs on your goods, you can see how you like it. You know, we'll negotiate this trade deal and we'll take our merry time about it. And if after we've said yes to this trade deal, you decide that you don't want a trade deal and you want to stay with WTO rules like Mauritania, well, not even Mauritania, that has trade deals. But yeah, if you want to stay in this dire situation in which half of the things you sell to other countries cost up to 50% more for no good reason, money which goes to the EU, it doesn't go to us. It's more money for the EU. Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, but I don't think the EU wants a failed state on its doorstep. So it's not a case of the German car manufacturers riding to the rescue at the last minute. I think the EU will do what's in the EU's best interests, and it's in the EU's best interest to not have a failed state on its doorstep. Also, it's not in the EU's best interest to allow the Erasmus scheme to end. Don't forget, 3/4 of young people voted to remain. The number of young people coming up now who are old enough to vote, who would have voted, the vast majority voted to remain. So they're going to be our core group of rejoiners going forward in the future. And I wouldn't punish them entirely. They've already been punished enough. Anyone born this century has had their rights taken off them, their birthrights taken off them as an EU citizen. Their citizenship has been stripped from them like they're a goddamn terrorist, and they've been told they're not allowed to go to all these other places that they used to be able to go to without having to ask permission, and they're not going to be able to settle down there, start a business, go retire, all the usual stuff. So yeah, Erasmus, Guy Verhofstadt has already said we should probably keep that, and I agree with him. Someone's getting a round of applause, so I'm going to see what Darian's saying. Darian, there's a massive disease that is destroying the Cavendish banana at exactly the same time as Britain's going down the pan. Coincidence, you tell me. Well, it's called the Panama Blight, and yes, it has. It's causing a lot of problems because of the lack of genetic variation in the Cavendish banana, which is the banana that pretty much everybody eats. So, difficult. Interesting thing about bananas, actually. They grow on trees, but they're not really trees. They're just big plants, and they're essentially a bit like broccoli. So imagine like a big broccoli growing in your back garden. So if you get a machete and you give it a really hard hit, you can cut all the way through a big stem like this thick. You can cut through it in one. Oh, it's such a satisfying feeling, especially when you're imagining, I don't know, some vexatiers in your head while you do it. There is, the Panama Blight is coming. The Panama Blight is coming. I've only got 2 minutes, so we're gonna have to get going in a minute. Remember to like and subscribe. I'm gonna put my Santa hat on because we've got to be a bit Christmassy, haven't we? There you go. Got me Santa hat on. Yay, ho, ho, ho. Nothing to worry about. It's just the end of the world. Don't worry about it. A lot of blue rinses will have gone. Yeah, I didn't want to say it out loud. It wasn't natural. Natural processes will take their toll. The thing about racists is they think non-racists want to criticize a race when it's about not criticizing because of race. It's because someone is wrong, you must call it out no matter race. Yeah, exactly. And so if I said Mugabe was a terrible, terrible leader of Zimbabwe, it's not because I don't like black people. It's because he was a terrible leader of Zimbabwe. Same for Idi Amin in Uganda or Sikoko in, I forgot his name now, in Congo. Never do a fella for being right. And I will stand with conservatives, right, who are not on my political side at all, but I will stand with them if they're right. If they're saying something that's actually true, and it's correct and it's in the best interest of the nation, then I'll go, yeah, you're right. I've not had to do that this year. With Britain on the cusp of leaving the transition period by 51% to 40%, Britons think we were wrong to leave the EU. Yeah, and Nick, and that number's just going to get bigger and bigger. Banana is a herb. That's another point about banana. Why are we talking about bananas? This is bananas. Oh, because it's the only reason that we want to leave the EU is because of bananas. Yeah, I forgot about that. So Scotland is leaving. Wales is getting its plan to get out. Ireland is going to reunite. The British state is a failed state. Don't hold your breath waiting for the BBC to tell you that. Yes. But I'm going to say, I would call it like it is. Britain, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, is a dead country walking. Merry Christmas. Before I go, I just want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters out there who have pledged for a few pounds each month to basically support me. I was going to read out the list of names quickly, but I've for some reason I've logged out. I don't know why I've logged out. Why did I log out? Log me back in, Patreon, and everyone can wait while I look up my Patreon list, which possibly I should just have locally on my computer, but I don't. So sorry about that. So if you want to sponsor me to continue making these Hughes casts over the next few weeks and then into next year, this is the link you need, which I'm just going to put up now on my messenger here. There you go, patreon.com, that Ginger Scouser. I might have to change that name soon because I'm becoming more grey, less ginger by the day. It's all Brexit's fault, as is everything ofs. A big shout out to Andrew Newton, Thomas Page, Malik Gibbons, hi Malik, Hayden Williams, Johan Sundal, Sally Wilton, James Chilton, Elizabeth Bennett, Chris Kopak, Chubai, David Reeve, Attila D6, Daniel Jones, Derek Knowles, Paul Mason, Alex Green, Jarton Ran, Alexander Morgan, Betty Biscuit, Compute Art, AB, thanks AB, and Darren Christian, who all support me on Patreon. I really appreciate it. Now, before I go, I'm going to do another quick plug. So what I've done is I've set up the Rejoin EU page, which hopefully will eventually become a forum for everybody who wants to quite sensibly rejoin the EU. And I'm just putting up the link there. And the idea with Rejoin EU, it's just that. It's not asking for a second vote. It's not asking for this or that or the other. It's not demanding that we stay part of the customs union or the single market. It is just purely, let's rejoin the EU. And this campaign might have to go on for many years, but let's get going on it because I think people are finally waking up to the fact that this is going to be a nightmare of epic proportions. And what I've done is I've set it up so that you can give some money toward doing a march next year. I wanted it to be on March the 13th, but with the mutated virus, I don't know if that's going to be actually doable. But if it has to be postponed, it has to be postponed. We'll just do it on a different date. But we need about $5,000 in order to pay for the stage bus and to pay for insurance and then a kit for the marshals and things. It's not a lot of money in the greater scheme of things. I'd make a lot more money going for a PPE contract for the government. But let's get going on this. Now, if you do give some money this Christmas, before Christmas Day, you can select a Brexiteer of your choice and you can gift that money from them, okay, effectively. So we will let them know on Christmas Day. There will be tweets going out, there'll be emails going out for people who aren't on Twitter to say, congratulations for your kind donation of £100 to the fund for rejoining the EU on behalf of, and then nicknames and names of the people who actually gave the money. Thank you. Merry Christmas, Nigel. So that's the plan there. So if you want to head over to rejoin.uk, that would be great. Restream.io appears as your name on my TV YouTube app, but I see your name as Graham Hughes on my computer web browser. Weird. Sorry about that. Well, my name isn't Restream.io. I'm thinking of changing it in the new year, but I'm fairly happy with Graham at the moment. I might stick with that. Brexit is the nightmare before Christmas 2020. Brexit is the nightmare after Christmas 2020. And Brexit is just an absolute bloody nightmare. However, we're still here. If you've got your health and you've got that, that's good. If you don't have your health, good luck getting better. Get well soon. Stay safe. That's what I want to say. A Christmas message. Stay safe over the next few days and weeks. Please don't take any unnecessary risks. This virus is still out there. We know it is spreading like wildfire and it is deadly. And it is a lottery on who lives and who dies. And I want everyone to stay as safe as possible. And I wish we didn't have this screaming monkey clown car on fire in charge of the country, but we do. And we are just going to have to muddle through as best we can and be there for each other. Now, if anyone wants to contact me personally, if you give me a follow on Twitter, I'm at every country. I tend to follow back everybody until it tells me not to follow people anymore. I hate that message coming up. It says you are stopped from following any more people this time. It makes me feel like I'm like some weirdo with my night vision goggles in the park going, I'm just following these people. But no. I tend to follow back. And if I follow you back, that means you can message me. So if you want to send me a message, if you just want to chat or anything like that, I'm going to be here all over Christmas until... and I'm probably not going to be on air. I might be. But I'm probably not going to be on air till Sunday with the Hughes at 10 o'clock on Sunday. So, all pubs closing from the 27th. I hope you all stocked up for Christmas. Let's get riggedy wrecked. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I wish I had a more positive note to end it on. I wish I could say it's going to be great. And, I'm looking forward to life not in the European Union, but I'm not. I'm really not. Whack nacken. Why nacken? Why nacken? I think that means Merry Christmas in German from Pete. Darren says, Happy Christmas, everyone. Stay well. Merry Christmas, everyone. Heads up, great. Oh, I read that one. Thanks for all the fish, Nigel. Hit the like button, folks. Any more travel shows in the future? Tony, in the new year, I'm going to be doing a show probably on Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock called Hughes of the World, and it's just going to be about travel. I won't mention the B word, although it will be a slightly ironic TV show. It's not TV show, but streamed show on live streaming, because obviously I don't know if British people are going to be able to go anywhere. So it could be like a fantasy travel show, like fantasy football. You don't play the football yourself, but you can hear about the people who do. I don't know how successful that'll be. Joyo Noel from France, I think. That's from Stuart. And to everyone around Britain and around Europe and around the world, have a safe Christmas. Have a happy Christmas as best you can. I'm sorry that plans have been ruined by the idiots in charge, but you and I are not going to let them get away with this. And maybe that's the positive message of all this. Young people want to rejoin the EU. Young people are not in love with Boris Johnson or any of his policies. They don't like Priti Patel's horrific attitude towards people who are fleeing from conflict. They don't share her attitudes about capital punishment and all these horrific things that she wants to do. I don't know if the tide is turning yet, but I know that the tide will turn. It will. Demographics dictate it. And there will be a point at which over 2/3 of this country is clamouring to rejoin the EU. We just have to hang on till then. And we have to do everything in our power to make that day when it comes a day when we actually go, okay, this is it. We are now going to rejoin the EU because that's the democratic will of the British people. So until then, until Sunday, I guess, I will bid you Merry Christmas and just say for the last time before Christmas, hello, good evening, welcome.